eyes on the APC concerning its zoning decision. Let's talk now to Deputy Dean, Faculty of Social Sciences and Professor, Media and Communications, Bayes University. Is also a political analyst, Professor Abiodun. Thank you for joining us on TVC News at 7. So there's been a clamor for principal positions by lawmakers-elect, and the North Central is making a strong case, especially for the Speaker of the House of Representatives. Do you think they have qualified lawmakers that can fit into that position?
Okay, thank you for bringing me over. I don't doubt the question of qualification, because North Central is strategic in so many respects, not just in terms of natural resources, but of course in terms of human resources. And beyond human resources, of course, is the question of political endowment. They are well politically endowed, considering the caliber of politicians they have produced in the past. And I have no doubt that in this dispensation, they parade quite a number of them. Where people like us have been watching the political firmament, looking at the contestations and the arguments, and we have seen quite a number of them coming out. I note particularly Honorable Adamu Gadi, vying for the speakership and some other numbers. And I imagine that some of these people are very young and vibrant with requisite experience. And so in terms of qualification, I have no doubt. But there are other issues, really, which is why other zones are also trying to push their case.
Exactly what I was just going to say, Professor, the fact that there are people making cases for other regions. You take the Northwest, for instance, which also has presented strong position, saying, looking at the contribution to the success of the ruling party in the just concluded election. Does that bother you?
Yeah, absolutely. I was going to look at that. When politicians are calculating, they bring so many things onto the table. Like the number of votes that each zone garnered for the party, or the contributions that individual members have made, in the emergence of the party, as the winner of the presidential election. And of course, they talk about ranking, they talk about experience. And if you look at all these factors, you will not undermine the place of the North Central, for instance. That would you necessarily undermine the place of the Northeast, by their pedigree. But again, you also have to look at whether or not a region or not, other region integration, which about, but what matters really is the political agility, the savviness, and the swiftness of the political hierarchy, how they can respond to the sensitivities and sensibilities, of not just the people of the area, but their leaders, as the case could be. But overall, we expect that APC would be wise enough, be smart enough to zone it appropriately, such that there can be inclusion, because inclusion matters, especially where we have had questions of inclusion in advance of the presidential election, bordering around religion, bordering around the distribution of political position, and of course, in advance again of the appointments that we expect the president to make. But overall, for me, yes, I'm not a politician, but of course, I'm a keen watcher. I'm from the North Central. If you ask me, I would say the zone should not be undermined, considering the role that it has been playing, in the scheme of things. But beyond thinking of these zones, really, we also have to look beyond individuals and concentrate on the ability of the politicians, to deliver on the goods, as the case could be. And in doing this, competence, ability, experience matter. And that's why I mentioned one of them who I know, I've read about quite a number of them too, and I'm not going to push them away by any means. I know that they've got what it takes and to provide the necessary leadership, if well considered.
So the North Central in the past had produced past presidents of the Senate, David Mark, there's Bukola Saraki. You wonder, for instance, if there was any peculiar advantage that those positions brought to the people of the region.
Yeah, that's the question, really. It's one thing to agitate for one region. It's another thing to look at the productivity of the region or the productivity of the position holder as a representative of the people. Sometimes you find a gulf between these two, whether the person has been representative enough. But whether or not we have seen representation is not a reason for us to discontinue the agitation for fulsome representation of the regions. And of course, we are mindful of the decibel, the level of agitation of all the sections and all the interest groups that are presently conflicting. You know, APC is a party that should be mindful of inclusion because it is one thing to be victorious, it's another thing to manage victory. If victory is not probably managed, of course, the opposition, they are waiting in the wings to cash in on it. Elections may look 4 years away, you know, but 4 years is just a short time. You know, if processes are not properly managed, of course, they've got to pay for it. But okay, what we can just do in the circumstance is to trust in the wisdom of their leaders to manage it well.
Well, we have to just hope that we regain connection with the professor. Prof, if you're still there, if you can hear me, I'm just wondering what happens if the zoning lot doesn't fall on the North Central in this regard. What other positions do you think that part of the country can be considering?
Well, it's okay that we are focusing on the North Central now. Well, first of all, we need to see that all sections have to be accommodated. But in the case of the North Central, we do know as well that beyond elective position, there are other appointed positions that are very reputable, very respectable, and from where individuals can make maximum contribution, you know, for the peace and progress of this country. We do not just need to be focusing on positions, you know, holding of positions. We have to also be concerned about delivery, service delivery, which it's the basic expectation of the people for which democracy is set up and for which these politicians contested in the first instance. But I do know that there are so many positions, you know, that are still in the wait, which the president-elect can come in different ways. But there's a sense in saying that politicians hold elective positions in very high regard, you know, being that those positions are drawn, you know, the legitimacy is derived from the will of the people, either as a whole or as a parcel of representation, as projected by maybe the legislature, for instance. So those things are differently regarded.
Indeed.
But the point we have to continue to make is for us to realize that it's a work in progress, and it shouldn't just be an end in itself. It should be a means to an end, and that end is effective service delivery.
Indeed.
Funded on competence,
I'm sure we'll see how all of this
agility,
play out,
etc.,
Professor, particularly when you consider the precedents in 2015 when it didn't work out the way of the party. Professor of Media and Communications and Political Analyst, Professor Abiodun, thank you for talking to us on the news tonight.